Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. Today I'm going to be giving my updated college football playoff predictions midway through the season here, week number 8. Going to be revealing the top 12 with a record prediction to boot, and then also talking about teams still in the mix as well on the next slide. But we're going to begin this with the number one overall team right now. It is Ohio State. Ohio State, this would be a projected finish of 13-0, Big Ten champions right now. You could argue Indiana should be the projected number one team, but let's be real. If we are going off of Vegas analytical rankings, Ohio State would be around a 4 to 5 point favorite over Indiana on a neutral field. That would be the hypothetical Big Ten championship. 12-0 Ohio State versus 12-0 Indiana. You do still have the Ohio State road game at Michigan. That's a game that they very easily could lose, let's be honest, based off of the past Ryan Day history against Michigan. But right now, Ohio State, I don't think there really is like a super ultra elite team, but Ohio State has analytically separated themselves from everyone else. According to any analytical model, they're about 3 or 4 points better than the next best team in college football. Does that matter right now? I mean, it matters when I'm doing predictions like this because I'm going to put them number one, but it's just hypothetical. So Ohio State, I would say they finished 13-0. They would have the resume. I mean, right now you're looking at the win over Texas. We'll see how Texas does. If Texas finishes 9-3, that's going to be a ranked win for Ohio State. Potentially a ranked win over Washington. We'll have to see how they finish out. Potentially ranked win over Illinois. I know they have a relatively easy schedule. They could finish 9-3. And then a potential ranked win over Michigan, although Michigan is unranked right now. And then they would also have Indiana in the Big Ten championship. If they beat them, that would be their resume. The number 2 team I have, it is Miami. So Miami would be 13-0. They would be ACC champions. You could maybe make an argument if Indiana loses to Ohio State, Indiana should be in front of Miami, but I don't think so. I think Miami for sure would be the number 2 team. Miami is not loved analytically. I think they're 6th or 7th in terms of the analytics. They also have a very weird scheduling quirk where they do not leave the state of Florida until November. That is a real thing. Part of it's because they have 2 early buys. Part of it's because they're facing all these in-state teams. They played at FSU. But Miami's schedule, I mean, they have the win against South Florida. People are hyping that up because it's a ranked win. They have the win against FSU on the road, although now FSU is 3-3. They've got the win against Notre Dame. That looks like an amazing win. Now, if Notre Dame loses to USC, that win's going to be devalued a little bit. But if Notre Dame wins out and goes 10-2, Miami, they might try and argue for the number 1 overall seed. I think the problem is analytics do not love them like at all. And also, I mean, it is pretty crazy. You're not leaving the state of Florida until November. Like that is I mean, you can say what you want about scheduling and travel and things like that. That's kind of that's an advantage. Let's be honest. Like I know you have road games, in-state road games and stuff, but that's pretty crazy. So Miami, I mean, the ACC is also not a very good conference. So are they really going to get a number 1 over? I don't see any way Miami is the number 1 because I think it's either going to be Ohio State or Indiana as long as they finish 13-0. Now, if Ohio State loses to Michigan but beats Indiana, then maybe Miami, if they finish 13-0, is better than a 12-1 Ohio State team with the 1 loss. I mean, that's possible. But I don't want to go through all these different hypotheticals. We'll just keep it going. We've got Indiana at number 3. So this would be Indiana losing to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. They've got the huge road win at Oregon. Other than that, for Indiana, it's kind of smooth sailing. They've got the crazy blowout win at Illinois. But the Big Ten this year, obviously, it is not deep at all, especially with Penn State being very down. Indiana, they still have that road game at Penn State, but again, that's not that big of a game at this point. And so they do not face Ohio State in the regular season. They do not face Michigan in the regular season. They do not face USC in the regular season. So Indiana is looking very, very good to make the playoff. And people argue maybe they should be projected as Big Ten champions. But in this scenario, I would say Ohio State would be clear favorites over them. And so they'd be number 3 because you don't have the 4 auto buys. So Indiana would get a bye at 12-1. At number 4, you've got Alabama, a 2-loss team with a bye because they would be SEC champions. You're looking at Bama's schedule. It's insanely difficult. Now, there is this argument going on. It's like, oh, SEC teams are overrated. They're all just going to beat up on each other. When you look at non-conference play, the SEC has been head and shoulders above every other conference. Looking at non-conference opponents, looking at group of 4 versus group of, or I should say power 4 versus power 4. The SEC is the best conference in college football. It just is what it is. Now, you could also say, well, the SEC doesn't have the best teams overall because Ohio State, maybe you want to argue Indiana. Although I think a lot of these people are going to say Indiana's going to have to beat one of these teams. I mean, look at what happened last year. And I know there's the narrative with Indiana, oh, it's different. They're better now. I mean, this is an Indiana team that beat Iowa by 5 points. It's not like they outgained them by a crazy amount. I think we should pump the brakes on Indiana. And then it's like Indiana against Alabama. Are you really taking Indiana? I mean, maybe. I mean, I think Indiana could beat Alabama just because all these SEC teams they're all flawed to a greater degree than they normally are in terms of just how much parity there is in that league. Like, because there's no Nick Saban, because Kirby Smart's Georgia is down a little bit this year, there's not that singular team that you can just say, oh, they're better than everyone, or, oh, when a Big Ten team faces them, it's going to be a challenge. You just don't have that team in the SEC this year, like upper echelon Big Ten versus upper echelon SEC. And I think you're going to start seeing this argument more and more by SEC people, especially if the Big Ten wins another national title. They're going to say, well, it's not fair. The Big Ten doesn't have the same wear and tear that the SEC does, and that's the only reason why the Big Ten beats the SEC in the playoff, because they come in more rested and things. I think you're going to start seeing that narrative, especially if the Big Ten wins again. But this year it's just the SEC is there's no super great team. I mean, Alabama has clear flaws. Their running game right now, I think Ty Simpson's a good quarterback. Is he this like superstar QB? I don't buy it. I think he's solid, but he's like second in the Heisman odds because there's like nobody this year for the Heisman. Carson Beck, I think, is first. But Alabama is still, just because they've already beaten Georgia, they've beaten Vandy, they have a relatively easy road schedule. They could lose one more game and then win the SEC championship. They're still undefeated in the SEC right now because they have the one loss to FSU. So they look to be on a clear path to make the SEC championship. Maybe they finish 12-1. If they finish 12-1, you're going to be talking about them possibly being number 2 in front of Miami, even though Miami's 13-0, because their resume is going to be that good. But I think Bama slips up somewhere, but they still win the SEC, and then you argue, well, do they get a first-round bye as a 2-loss team? But they'd be SEC champions. You've got Texas Tech at number 5, 12-1, Big 12 champions. I think I moved Texas Tech up one spot. So yeah, I still see Texas Tech slipping up in one of these games, but I think they're going to finish 11-1, then they're going to win the Big 12 championship, so they finish 12-1. And worst case, they're probably ranked 6th. But for them, that's a gimme 5v12 matchup if they get the 5 seed, because they're going to be hosting the group of 5 team. So they're going to be double-digit favorites over them. So you want to get that number 5 spot if you are Texas Tech. Obviously, you'd love a first-round bye, and a lot of the Big 12 people are going to be pissed that a 2-loss Bama team would be in front of a 1-loss Big 12 champ, but undoubtedly, that's what would happen. Moving on to number 6, it is Oregon, 11-1. I moved Oregon down. So, I mean, looking at Oregon's schedule, they might lose another game. If Oregon loses another game, I still think they make the playoff, but that is a bad resume. They've got to, well, the thing is Oregon still has a road game at Washington. They're hosting USC. Other than that, I think they have like Iowa. They've got Rutgers this week. Easier games, but I mean, at Iowa is a little bit hairy. We'll see. I think Oregon, they finished 10-2. They're probably going to be ranked like 10th or 11th. Like they're definitely going to be on the road in round 1 just because they don't have the wins. Like that's something that people have been talking about with Oregon. They beat Penn State, but now people are saying, well, that's devalued. And I don't really buy that. I think it's a hard win. That's a top 5 matchup. That's a good Penn State team. Obviously Penn State, it's been a disaster for them, but I still think I would give Oregon credit for beating Penn State. Maybe not the same credit, as to where if Penn State ended up like 11-1 with their only loss being to Oregon, maybe not that much credit, but I'd still give Oregon credit for beating Penn State. I don't think this revisionist history on, oh, Penn State now sucks and they're going to finish 4-8. Well, I mean, I guess if they finish 4-8, but even that, I mean, their starting quarterback is out for the year. They fired their head coach. It's like, I don't know. So it's hard. Like Oregon's best win, people say now, is Northwestern, but I think Oregon, if they finish 11-1, they're probably going to be in like the 6th range or somewhere around there. At number 7, we've got Texas A&M. So this would be A&M making the SEC championship, losing to Alabama. Yeah, so A&M at 11-2. I mean, they just have no losses right now. I'm not a huge believer in A&M. And A&M, if you look at their schedule, they could lose 3 games. Legitimately, they could. But they're probably going to beat Texas, even though I think it's on the road. That's the last game of the season. And then you have, a few other games I know that are tough. I mean, it's the SEC. They're going to have tough games. But, A&M's had a very easy schedule so far. In the SEC, they've had 3 home games. They've all been against teams that they can handle very easily. And so it's going to get a lot tougher for A&M. A&M's definitely going to drop at least a game. But right now, it's just they have 0 losses. So that's why people are predicting them to make the playoff mainly. They have 2 mulligans. They can lose 2 games. In this scenario, they would go 11-1 in the SEC and they lose to Alabama in the SEC championship. But, in the regular season, they could finish 10-2, not even make the SEC championship, and probably be ranked 8th, somewhere around there. So here I have them 7th. At number 8, I have Ole Miss at 10-2. So I thought about switching out Ole Miss. It's possible. I mean, Ole Miss probably will lose to Georgia, but does that matter in the grand scheme of things? Well, actually, I probably should have put Georgia over Ole Miss if that head-to-head goes that way, because I also have Georgia in here. But I still think Ole Miss is going to make the playoffs somewhere. Maybe they're going to be on the road in round 1. They had the game against Washington State. That was very bad. They did win it. They still are a team that has the games that they can lose, because they're undefeated right now, so they could lose 2 games. They can go 4-2 in the next 6 and make the playoff. So in this scenario, that's what would happen. You've got Georgia at number 9. Yeah, you'd probably switch those if Georgia ends up beating Ole Miss, which I think is what's going to happen. Georgia's about 7.5-point favorites over Ole Miss. There's a scenario where either Georgia or Ole Miss, one of those teams misses the playoff completely. Probably the higher chance of it being Georgia, but one of those teams could get to 3 losses. It's possible. Georgia is not that great. I shouldn't say. They're a very solid team. They're very talented. They always recruit well. Relative to the previous teams, that we're used to from Georgia, it's a little bit down. The defense is down. The offense, it's kind of the same offense that they've had, but I've got Georgia at number 9. Definitely a worse Georgia offense than when they went back-to-back. Notre Dame at number 10, the independent. So Notre Dame in this scenario would have to beat USC this week and win out. If Notre Dame wins out, I think they're kind of entrenched at like the number 10 spot. It's just because they have a bad, the lack of quality wins, and the fact that they don't play in a conference, so they don't have a conference championship game. I mean, you could say, well, they should. I just don't see them a 10-2 Notre Dame. Analytically, you could say, well, they should be in front of A&M, Ole Miss, Georgia, maybe even Oregon, maybe even Texas Tech. But the resume is not going to say that. So I think they would bump them down. Now, maybe Notre Dame slides into like an 8v9 game. Maybe they're the 8 seed. Maybe they get to host in round 1. But it's just Notre Dame is not going to have the quality wins if they finish 10-2. They'll beat USC, but if USC loses to Notre Dame, USC is going to be unranked. Now, maybe USC can win some games, but they also have to face Oregon. So then they lose to Oregon. Does USC stay unranked? Does Notre Dame not have a single ranked win on their resume when they go 10-2? It's possible. That's why they would be at number 10. Number 11, I have Tennessee. So that's a new team entering. People, they get angry. They say, what's with all these SEC teams? I mean, this is just the way it is right now. Now, you can say, well, we're going to put a Big Ten team in like USC. Or the thing is, if I had USC and then Notre Dame would be out. So I'd just be replacing USC with, or Notre Dame with USC. Because, if USC beats Notre Dame, Notre Dame's 10 or it would have 3 losses. They have 0 chance of making it. So it's like the Big Ten this year is just Michigan. I don't see it. I mean, I guess if they run the table and they beat Ohio State again, they finish 10-2, they're going to make it. Sure. Can you really predict that? I mean, I think they're probably going to lose to Washington. Then it's like the Big Ten is the only other conference. Who else? The Big 12. Are they going to get 2 teams in? Are they going to get BYU in? Seriously? I don't see the Big 12 getting 2 teams in. So it's just like I have to throw all these SEC teams in. This is just how it is. The Big Ten is a lot weaker. USC is not as well. I mean, USC is solid, but they're not at the level that people thought they would get to. And this is with Oregon being the 6th seed, because people think Oregon should be lower, but people just get angry with all the SEC teams. This is just how it is right now. That you've got 5 SEC teams. Just so Tennessee at number 11. Yeah, Tennessee, I think they could lose to Bama and then run the table if you look at their schedule. And I'm not a huge believer in Tennessee. I think Tennessee versus Oregon would be pretty, well, I don't really know what to make of Oregon, but I'm not a big believer in Tennessee, but I'm just throwing them in there because who else are you going to put in there? USC? You really can't. I mean, USC would just replace Notre Dame. What other Big Ten teams are there? Washington? Is Washington going to go 10-2? I doubt it. I mean, maybe if they beat Michigan. But there's just no Big Ten teams because Penn State is so down this year. And Michigan is down this year. And USC already lost to Illinois. Now, maybe USC, again, they might be able to take Notre Dame's spot. But this is just the thing to where it's like you kind of have to have all these SEC teams in at this point. Because the other conferences, I mean, what, an ACC team? Louisville? I mean, obviously it's not going to be FSU now. It's not going to be Clemson. The ACC doesn't have the teams. So it is Tennessee and the 5th SEC team. And then at number 12, it's Memphis, the group of 5 team. I think the group of 5 this year is bad. I think people are going to be really angry with the group of 5, and they're going to want that. People are going to start saying they need to scrap that auto bid group of 5 spot. I don't think Memphis is that good. I think Memphis would easily lose to Texas Tech, and it would be like one of those where it's like, what are we doing here? You know? But I mean, a lot of these first round matchups are probably going to be blowouts. That's just kind of how it is. Moving on to the other teams. This might be cut off a little bit. I apologize for that. USC, Nebraska, Michigan, Washington. Yeah, Nebraska's another one where it's like, Nebraska has the one loss to Michigan. They're just not that good. I mean, this is a team that's like 7-point favorites on the road at Minnesota. This is just not that good of a team. I'm sorry. Now you could say, well, they've got an easy schedule. Well, actually, I was looking at it. I think they're probably going to lose 3 games, and then they'd have no chance of making it. Michigan, they've got to, they got to run the table. They have 2 losses. Washington, they have 1 loss, but they're underdogs at Michigan. And then I think they also face USC and Oregon or one of those teams. I think Washington's probably going to lose a minimum of 3 games. They're going to be out. The SEC, Missouri. I mean, you could argue Missouri, they had the close loss to Alabama. I'm not a big believer in Missouri, honestly. I think Missouri beats Auburn, but I mean, Missouri still has a tough schedule. They're going to lose at least 3 games. They might lose 4 games. Vanderbilt, I don't see Vanderbilt making it. I think Vanderbilt will lose to LSU. LSU is also there. I just don't like their offense, but I think they beat Vanderbilt this week. Oklahoma and Texas. Texas is just too flawed on offense. Oklahoma is also too flawed on offense. And I think the schedule alignment for Oklahoma is brutal. ACC, Virginia, they're just not good enough. They already have a loss. They might lose to Washington State. I'm kidding. But actually, I like Washington State. Georgia Tech, they're undefeated. Georgia Tech is undefeated. Should we put them in over the 5th SEC team, Georgia Tech? Georgia Tech faces Georgia. They almost beat them last year. They probably should have in the rivalry game. But, dude, that game is at a neutral site. How brutal is that? Oh, they destroy college football when they do that. How are you putting a rivalry in-state game at a neutral site? Wow. That ruined that game, honestly. Georgia versus Georgia Tech. And that's probably going to be a good game because Georgia Tech's going to be ranked. But I don't see Georgia Tech making it. BYU and Utah. I think Utah actually has a better chance than BYU. BYU to me is fraudulent. They probably should have lost to Arizona this past week. But and Utah, I can't see the Big 12 getting 2 teams in. Utah got crushed by Texas Tech. So if they rematch with them the only chance for the Big 12 is Utah versus Texas Tech in a rematch and Utah wins. Then it's like, well, Texas Tech is a 12-1 non-Big 12 champ that has all the great analytics and the defensive numbers. And then group of 5, it's really just South Florida. I mean, North Texas, Navy. It's just South Florida. You also have, I should say, really it's either South Florida or Tulane. But mainly it's Memphis or South Florida. That's the group of 5, and then Tulane at the end. But I think it's going to be either Memphis or South Florida, the group of 5 team that makes it. So that's basically it. And, people, it's a lot of SEC teams, but it's just like, the problem is I would easily have Penn State in here and it'd be a balance of 4-4, Big Ten SEC. This is the problem. The problem is Penn State. Penn State really, everyone is shocked by what happened with that program. So it's like, well, do you throw a Big Ten team in there? I mean, these Big Ten teams, you can make a case, but then it's like Michigan has to beat Ohio State. They're going to be underdogs. They have to win all these games. Washington, I guess they can lose a game, but they're already underdogs in their next game. I just don't see it with the Big Ten. I mean, maybe they get 4 teams in. I think the Big Ten for sure, if USC beats Notre Dame. But even then, it's like, USC still has a road game at Nebraska and then a road game at Oregon. So it's like, even then, even if they beat Notre Dame on the road, it's really not smooth sailing for USC either. They can still lose those other 2 road games. So, there's a lot to take into account there. But either way, guys, that is going to do it for this video. Make sure you like the video down below. Also follow me on X. Links to that's always in the description.